Hi everybody, Vector here. As you can see, I have this. If you've been wondering where I've been for the past few months or so, it has mostly been school, but this is the big project I've been working on for the past 6 months or so. I've wanted to have my own fursuit for a while, but as you might know, the options for that are a little bit troublesome. Either you have to have a lot of money, a lot of time, or a bit of both. And as it turned out, I didn't have that much money. So I was looking into ways to make a fursuit for cheaper, and one of the things that came up was crochet. I have been crocheting as a hobby for a good while now, so I thought it'd be a unique and kind of fun challenge to try to see if it would work. When I was doing my research though, I did find out that while people did do crochet suits, there wasn't that much documentation for how they did it, how it felt doing it, or any of that sort of stuff. So I wanted to record every single thing that happened on my journey during and before and after making my suit. This is a very unique sort of thing though, because I had never made a suit before. I never crocheted anything this big. I have never done a lot of things relating to this, so it was a big learning experience for me. However, I'm honestly pretty happy with how it turned out. There's a lot of things that I would have liked to improve upon, but apparently I guess the research paid off. I have a document in the description that goes over the details of everything that went into making this, but this will be the general overview. When starting a crochet suit, the first question was, what will the actual mask be made out of? Because there has to be something underneath. I could have some sort of crochet thing like on my head, like some sort of ski mask or something, but the problem with that is that there's parts that stick out and stuff, and it's like, do you put stuffing in there, do you put foam, do you have some sort of plastic mesh? And I did find out that there were a lot of ways to make fursuit bases, and the one method I saw that was just better than every single other option was foam. So there were some interesting ones, like having a velociraptor mask and then putting stuff over it, but that wouldn't work very well for this sort of look. There were other methods like having plastic mesh or 3D printed whatever, but 3D printed masks are pretty expensive, and other methods that involve plastic are usually not as durable. And I was kind of surprised by that. I knew that foam was the most popular method, but the reasons why is that it's like, one, breathable, two, very durable. Like, you can hit this all you want and nothing's gonna happen to it. I have read stories online about people having a plastic suit head and then maybe someone accidentally sits on it and it just breaks, so that's really not a good thing to have to worry about. But yeah, once I had the method and everything figured out, then I just had to go out and buy materials. The one reason why I went with crochet was because, again, like, having crochet fur is a lot cheaper than actual fur. So what I did was go out and buy foam, glue gun, the different types of yarn. That was another thing that came up, was how to do crochet fur, because there are a few ways. One way is just to get fluffy yarn, and that is pretty straightforward, but it also means that it'll be harder to crochet since you aren't able to see your knots and stuff as easily. And it also tends to be more expensive. The deciding factor for me was actually mostly just the fact that I couldn't find any fluffy yarn that was in the colors that I needed. And another method is to just crochet it normally, to have like a suit head that just looks like crochet. That wasn't my ideal choice since I wanted one that looked like actual fur. That also meant that I had to rule out the possibility of having like crochet strands that come out, which does look nice for crochet projects, but it doesn't really look like fur. The one method I did end up settling on was having crochet normally and then having a brush to brush everything out. It's a metal brush that's usually used for pets, but it ends up like fraying out the crochet yarn and ends up making it look actually pretty realistic. Pretty much everyone I spoke to was very impressed actually by how the fur looked. Like, I think that most people never actually was able to tell that this was crochet. It is pretty obvious if you look closely or if you look underneath, but other than that, it kind of comes off pretty naturally. So making a foam base was actually pretty straightforward. There was a very specific base that I had from a YouTube tutorial. It did give this you know, kimono shape, and I really wanted a kimono shape because it's a pretty simple shape to make look appealing like really easily. Like I was afraid that if I went with like a more normal foam based design and mess it up, then it would be very hard to crochet around, or it would be hard for my character to look like my character. Fidget has a very strange head shape, if you've seen him. So after I got the foam base done, it was a lot of crocheting. I said that this project took 6 months, but I actually took frequent breaks. I looked on the document, and in total, it took me about 31 days total. And each of those days, I would say I took about 4 to 5 hours, and averaged up, that means I took about 124, anywhere between like 120 to 150 hours in total. So that's how long it took to make this suit head. It was a lot of work, but most of the time when it was crocheting, it was just like a kind of relaxing activity. There were a lot of issues I ran into. So I'm not like an expert crocheter or anything, but so having to crochet blind basically to figure out this 3D shape. The ears was one of the easiest parts, since it was just like making a hat almost, where you just make a circle and then you just decrease the number of crochets till you get to the top. But like making a head, for example, which is like this dome shape, I had to like make a circle around the eyes and then crochet out because I wanted to make sure that the eye holes were proper. And you can see from the screenshots that it was a little bit messy, but most of the time I was just like, oh yeah, I'll just brush it in post. Which did almost work, but you can tell in certain areas that it wasn't quite as neat, or it's a little bit like bumpy wherever knots happen or anything. However, the hardest part of this was definitely the brushing. I did not expect the brushing to be so difficult. I'm not sure if it was a problem with my brush, but every time I tried to brush too hard, then the brush part would just come off of the handle, and that made it really difficult, because then I had to grip it weird, and then I had to brush it over and over and do it on like every part of the head, and you have to do it like over and over again, otherwise it doesn't really look fluffy, it just looks like crochet. This was made harder by the fact that I had already stitched on areas like these, so trying to brush over the eyes or the eyebrow would like make it try to come off, and that was not really a fun time. This was also a few days before the convention happened, so I was really in a rush. And yes, I did technically go to a convention before, but this meant that this would be the first convention where I went suiting at, and it was quite an experience. I enjoyed the convention very much, but walking around in this thing is like very difficult. You might have been noticing that I keep tilting my head, because that's the only way that I can see the camera, because there's this huge blind spot down the middle. I looked at other masks, and I think these eyes are a lot smaller than usual, so I wasn't able to use this very much because the vision is like very, very limiting. And the convention was also in the middle of the summer, so most of the time I was at the convention, I actually had to keep this thing off, because otherwise I had super limited eyesight, super hot head, and I know that's what every suitor says, but it's really tough when it's your first time and you're just walking around these crowded spaces, and it's basically blind to like here and right here. It's just I can't see anything, so I can't really see the floor unless I'm looking down, and I can't see people unless I'm tilting my head. So my original plan was that I would just make this one suit head, and then that would be it. And even if I wasn't happy with it or whatever, making a suit was very difficult and time consuming. But honestly, after going to the convention, I've kind of been inspired to make another one. And that's because people have just made such amazing things, and I also have like a lot of plans for how to improve this sort of design and prove that, you know, you can make like a crochet suit that really just looks like a normal fursuit. And I think that would be a really cool thing to pull off. So yeah, I hope this video helps someone out a little bit. I hope this inspires someone to make a better crochet suit head than me. I will try to make a second suit head out of crochet if I can and have the time and everything. But yeah, this is technically my face reveal, so I hope you all enjoyed, and see ya!